Okay, glad everyone could make it. Um, Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Jess Berg. I'm the current chair of the Pacific Northwest section. This is our fourth official meeting of the year, and we are so glad you're here. We had an online meeting in November titled Giants of the PNW, presented by Steve Fisk, John Goodmanson, and Jack Endino. Thanks again to Jim Rondinelli for producing that one and facilitating the night. It was a really fun evening. And it went pretty late too. A reminder that our sections meetings are typically September through June and will either be hybrid or fully online so that people can join and participate with us from all over the world. The next meeting is being planned for 1 p.m. on Saturday, January 17th, and it will be hybrid with DigiPen hosting in Redmond, Washington. JJ Johnston is producing, and the meeting is titled Audio Signals versus the Ear, Time, Frequency, and Bandwidth Revisited. Thanks to JJ for that. I don't know if he's joining us tonight yet, but he's definitely will be there in January. So looking forward to that. Stay tuned to the latest on our webpage where you can also learn more about becoming an AES member. There's a blue button at the bottom of the page that says joining info. You'll need 3 references and we are happy to be your references. Just ask. Also wanted to note, it is very important to our section that our meetings remain free and open to all. We use Zephy instead of Eventbrite because they don't take any fees. Tonight, we had very generous donations totaling $100. That is very generous, and this covers our committee business needs, and we kindly thank you. Friendly housekeeping reminder that we appreciate everyone using your real name first and last. Please reach out if you can't find where to do this. And just please be mindful of muting your microphone when not speaking. And feel free to use the chat feature to drop questions throughout the evening, or if you need anything along the way. Tonight, we will do introductions at the beginning, and then I'll hand it off to Matthew to start the evening. So I think that covers the business portion. Let's get to the fun stuff. So we're really excited for tonight and glad everyone could be here. I'm going to just go through the list and we'll just try to do a short introduction. I'll kick it off something like, I'm Jess Berg. I've been a live sound engineer for 22 years. I got into touring and production world, got into production management, tour management, got invited into broadcast audio world after COVID, and I am venturing back out into freelance world as we speak. So really glad I could be here. I'm currently in Roseville, Minnesota, although I was in the Pacific Northwest when I got involved with the committee, and I'm really thankful and grateful I can still participate from here. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dan Mortensen.
Oh gosh, hi. I'm on the committee in charge of the technology. I'm the meeting technologist for the committee now, and I'm also doing the oral history project interviews for the Audio Engineering Society, where I interview people for a couple hours and get them to tell their stories. And I am extremely pleased to say that our 3 guests today have all been interviewed so far for the oral history project, and that's really great. And unfortunately, you can't see them yet. The AES is in some turmoil now about its management. So we are working on editing videos as well as figuring out how to get them online. So thank you. Thanks, Jess, for such a great job.
Thank you, Dan. Couldn't do without you. Appreciate it. All right, Tom Stiles.
Hi there, I am Tom Stiles, coming to you from high atop the Jack Straw Cultural Center building in the University District in Seattle, where when I trod downstairs, I engineer sessions and reconfigure equipment and teach workshops. I also do live sound at Seattle Center and do recordings and live sound and sound design in other places as required. And I'm formerly a committee member and chairman of this section.
Thanks, Tom. Glad you could make it tonight. Tom Hall.
Tom Hall. I'm currently in Seattle. I engineer and design systems for high-end residential. Also design and sell speakers with Speaker Lab.
Great. Glad you could make it, Tom. We've got Stephen Young. Let's see. Stephen Young, are you? Yes, there you are.
Sorry, walked
Hi.
away for a minute.
No worries. We're just doing introductions. Good to see you.
Good to see you. No, I'm director of sales for Audix, based out of Portland, but I live out here near Port Townsend, cool scene area. So that's me.
Awesome. Glad you can make it.
Thanks.
Yep. Steve Turnage. I know you're eating dinner. There you are.
I ate dinner. It was good. I'm Steve Turnage, a mastering engineer and author and circuit board designer when the business is there. I just finished an album for the Tipton Sax Quartet, which is Amy Denio's project, and then yesterday finished a Squirrels album in Seattle. And so far things are very interesting. In the later 60s, they don't tell you that actually that's where you're trying to be. Don't let anyone know. So talk to y'all soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Glad you can make it. Steve Armstrong.
You want your sheet yet?
No.
Okay.
There we go. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the Northwest. I had a long career with JBL and Yamaha, and I've been retired for almost 10 years in Prescott, Arizona. But being online tonight feels like home. Thanks for having me.
Glad you could make it. Sean Murphy.
Hi, Sean Murphy in Portland this evening. Do film score recording, classical recording, and reinforcement for orchestras in the summertime when the time permits. Happy to see you all today.
Glad you could make it, Sean. Thanks for being here. Scott Holden.
Hey y'all, I'm Scott. Down here in Portland. Currently have my own company doing audio, sound system, transducer consultations, formerly with Audix. Prior to that, spent 5 years at Meta, 10 years at Microsoft. Prior to that, loudspeaker design, pro audio stuff, and seeing a lot of familiar faces here today.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Robert Scoville, welcome. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Hey, thanks. Yeah, Robert Scoville. I'm oh man, let's count the years. 46-year veteran now. I currently mix concert sound for Kenny Chesney and am a live sound recordist for him. I also serve as a live sound market manager for Eastern Acoustic Works. That's my day job. Thank you for the invite. Recently moved to Veneta, Oregon, just about 1 year ago. So nice to be up in the Pacific Northwest. Loving it.
Oh, great. Glad you could join. Nice to see you.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Robert Riggs. Oh, here. Sorry. Yep, here you go. I asked you to unmute. There you go. Should hit a button. Oh, I did it again. There you go.
Hi, Robert Riggs. I'm was in audio for several years at Biamp and Symmetrics and audio control and loud, and then I did a stint at Amazon for a while, and I'm going to get back into it soon. And talking tonight from Winthrop, Washington.
Great. Glad you could join. Thanks, Robert. Rick S.
Hi, this is Rick Smargiassi. I worked for Seattle's Center Sound and Video Department for 35 years. I just recently retired from that in September. And now I'm working mostly at the Climate Pledge Arena as a rigger, and I also occasionally work at the Convention Center as an AV tech.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Rick. Rick Fisher.
Hi, retired console driver and mastering engineer. Old acquaintance with all of our speakers today, so interested in what we're going to share. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Natalie Song.
Hi, I'm a recent grad from UW and I got invited to come check out this meeting. I'm excited to be here. I'm trying to get into more recording studio with live scenarios and yeah, sorry, just excited to be here.
Awesome. Glad you could make it. Yeah, we do this every month, so feel free to join anytime. Mike Wall.
Sorry about that. Had to unmute there. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm over in Kirkland, Washington, across the lake from Seattle. Audio engineer, electrical engineer, done signal processing stuff at Microsoft, and then worked at Symmetrics here. And I worked for a little company called Pacific Microsonics down in the Bay Area on mastering engineering boxes. And I also do a ton of nature sound recording and make chill music and nature sounds to help people sleep and chill out.
Love that. Thank you, Mike. Very cool. Mark Chavez.
There we go. Hi, folks. My name is Mark Chavez. I was an architect for 30-something years, and I retired, and I'm just checking you folks out. I'm amazed at the amount of talent I'm hearing of the jobs you folks have had. So I started electronics as a hobby a couple of years ago. I haven't zapped myself yet. So it's all good. I'm looking forward to hearing folks talk tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Mark.
Yeah.
Kenneth Faust.
Hello, lots of familiar names and faces. Delighted to have this meeting. I'm Kenneth Faust, joined the Society in 1970. I'm currently in San Francisco. Having failed to retire, I'm a consulting principal at Apiro Design.
Excellent. Glad you could make it. Janie Wallach.
Hi there, Janie Wallach. I'm on the committee and I record live music and including I just got the go ahead for Saturday night, which is going to be the last night of Madame Lou's. They are closing for good.
Thank you, Janie.
Yep.
Good to see you.
You too.
Everett Morin.
I'm Everett Moran from Port Townsend with Rain Shadow Recording, and I want to say to whoever it was that works with my Pacific Microsonics, huge fan of your converters. I haven't seen them in a long time, and they were amazing. Who was that, by the way?
Thumbs
Mike
up.
Wall. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks
for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Eric Weber.
Eric Weber, I'm coming to you from sunny Ames, Iowa, only a little bit of snow. I'm the U.S. importer for B9 audio microphones, and my main gig is audio and video production for Des Moines Metro Opera here in Iowa. And I did 35 years as a shipboard radio officer on cargo ships, doing recordings the whole time during my vacation period, starting in 1975 with the slightly heavy analog machines.
Wow. Thank you, Eric. Glad you could make it. Chris Myring.
Hi everyone, dialing in from Leicester in the UK. Never had a proper job unless it's shamelessly promoting classic British comedy, but somehow I seem to have made a living in music and audio, on stage, in the studio, and at the repair bench. And it's still going on.
Thanks for being here, Chris. Glad you could make it. Bob Smith.
Hello, I'm Bob Smith, and I'm coming from Linwood, Washington. Rob Riggs used to be my next door neighbor here a while back. And I spent over half a century in medical device electronics and the last 30 some years doing acoustic research for them, and now I'm retired.
Glad you could make it. Good to see you, Bob. Bob Kavanaugh. Hello, I see a wave.
Okay, here we are. Yes, took a while. Sorry, I'm Bob Kavanaugh. I'm retired. I'm an innocent bystander, interested in what, well, Charlie Morgan has to say for sure. Hi, Charlie. Gee, I don't know. I did a bunch of stuff in audio. I've also worked in other businesses and industries. I'm in Venice, in LA, in the Venice neighborhood near the beach now, and I'm really retired. So carry on, guys.
Awesome. Always good to see you, Bob. Thanks for joining. Bill, is it Droge? Sorry.
It's Dreggy. I don't know if you can see me. I'm actually en route from Seattle Center, where I manage the sound and video department. And it's really great to see a bunch of my mentors and colleagues here. So.
Awesome. You sound great, Bill. We can't see you, though. That's okay. Glad you can make it.
Thank you.
Angel.
Hi, I'm Angel Huang. I'm kind of new to here. I just moved from East Coast. We've just finished my degree in recording arts from Peabody Institute of Johns Hopkins. So I primarily focus on concert and studio recording and game audio. I hope to learn more and know more this community.
Awesome. Glad you could make it. Yeah, join anytime. We do this every month. So absolutely. Steve Wilkins, I know that you are chat only and glad to see you again. Feel free to drop your info in the chat.
He just wrote degree in psychology, studying perception, worked in acoustic consulting, MA in acoustics and noise professional musician, and have a Wii studio for vanity production of many discs.
Awesome. Thank you. Glad you can make it, Steve. Mark Gander.
Hi, I spent over 40 years at JBL Professional doing loudspeakers for all different kinds of professional applications, management, product development. And I'm retired down to the Mendocino coast in Northern California, living in the Redwoods, but I'll be up in Seattle to see family for Christmas. And I'm looking very forward to, much forward to this evening of hearing from some of my former colleagues and friends.
Glad you could make it, Mark. Thank you for being here. Jim, is it Mastraccio?
Mastracco.
Thanks.
You're fine. Well, as Rick said earlier before everybody joined, I'm in the swamp, so anything I could say professionally would matter. The quicksand is just so deep, you can't get out of it. I'm in Washington, D.C. Allow the reference. My Audio Engineering Society connection was, back in the day, I applied and was granted an AES Education Foundation grant a couple of years in a row and worked on concert hall acoustics. Published a paper, an article or two. Supposed to go down and work on Carnegie Hall's noise problems in '88, but decided to come to Washington as a Congressional Science Fellow. And as Frost said, two roads diverged in the road, and I took the one less traveled, however that goes. Thank you to Mr. Chinn for encouraging me to keep trying to get out of here. I'm looking forward to hearing what you all are going to be talking about. I love the British comedy thing I heard there in passing. I want to hear about that. That's it. Anything else? I'll send me an email or a chat. I'll agree to everything and be guilty, however you say it. It's nice to be a part of your group.
Glad you could make it, Jim. Yeah, and we'll do after the meeting, just so everyone knows, we'll do a hang. So feel free to stick around. It'll just be kind of an open hang chat, and so stay tuned for that after. And next we've got Dave Quick. Glad you could make it, Dave.
I'm Dave Quick, and studio owner, studio recording engineer, and instrument player. And I'm in Port Hadlock, Washington.
Excellent. Glad you could make it, Dave. And your studio's looking good behind you there.
No, this is my wife's office.
Oh, with the good speakers.
Well, I've taken it over. Till my studio's done.
Perfect. Good to see you, Dave. Glad you could make it tonight.
Okay.
And let's see, I've got Wayne Edwards.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Wayne Edwards, just north of Seattle a bit. I've been known to do a little live sound and a little location recording, and now I guess I'm semi-retired and it's got time to maybe invent some stuff.
Awesome. Glad you could make it, Wayne. Gary Louie.
Hi, I'm the secretary of the Pacific Northwest section in Seattle here, and I'm also on the tellers committee for the AES, which has nothing to do with handling money, but it runs the elections for the entire AES. And I've been retired a couple of years from the University of Washington School of Music in Seattle, where I spent my career there. And when I retired, I left everything to my then student helper, Natalie, somewhere, and an unknown replacement that I don't know what the heck happened. So we'll find out. I guess she's doing some work for Rick Chinn now. So I'd like to hear about that too. But that's just the personal thing. So let's see, anything else? I'm a life member of the AES.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for being the co-host and co-recordist as well for our meeting. And with that, that concludes the main introductions. I'm going to turn it over to Matthew Sutton to introduce himself and the rest of our panel tonight. And please feel free to turn off your videos. There is a view button up in the top right that if you're on a computer, you can do hide non-video participants, and that will give you just the 4 speakers for tonight's meeting. And again, feel free to use the chat to drop questions. I'll jump in, or Dan perhaps as well, and then we'll open it up after. So
and Dan's going to jump in now and say, if you don't turn off your camera or your microphone, I'll turn them off for you, and it's a hassle for you to turn it back on if I turn it off. So you turn it off now, please. I think you already did. Thank you.
All right. And with that, Matthew Sutton.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this evening. I'm delighted to be here talking with old friends. And the idea for this meeting came actually from a meeting that was about 40 years ago when the AES chapter started here in Seattle. And the guys who were running it were all the old guys, and we were all the young guys back then. And they decided they wanted to do a meeting about live sound. And so they asked Rick Chinn to come up with a meeting. And so Rick came up with a panel, including Charlie and some others, and Mac, I think, too. And it was great. It was hilarious because most of the questions from the board members, the committee members were, why is live sound so loud? And then it digressed to them saying, okay, just tell us some good rock and roll stories. And it was a great deal of fun. And I just, as I was thinking about this, I'm very fortunate to have known Charlie and Mac and Rick for a long, long time. Not as long as they've known each other, but these are three guys who've done a lot, seen a lot, and tell great stories, all of which are true, by the way. And so I just thought it'd be fun to take a little trip back in time for a few minutes and learn a little background about these three guys, and then move our way forward a little bit and see the kind of things that they've done in and around Seattle in the world of audio. So with that, I'm going to start with beginnings. So Rick, in your bio, you told us that you got started because you made a Heath kit from a YMCA group in Seattle. What did you make?
It was a 12-watt amplifier, model UA2, I believe. Push-pull EL84s and a 6AN8 phase inverter and voltage gain and a EZ81 rectifier. And it didn't work when I turned it on. It hummed like a banshee.
Yeah.
And it took me, it took a cousin's husband who was a double E to find the problem, which was a defective piece of shielded cable that connected the grid of the phase splitter to the volume control. So that was what, 19, see, we were still living on King Street, so that would have been 1958 or so.
And so how did you then really become focused in audio?
Well, the hardware and stuff involved always intrigued me, all the way from movie projectors in school to the PA system used in assemblies, and then in, I think, 4th grade, we were forced to learn square dancing, and they had a Newcomb school phonograph that had variable speed, so that the clumsy kids, you could slow the music down so the clumsy kids wouldn't kill themselves. And that stuff always caught my attention. And finally, by high school, they had a student body committee to run the PA system for assemblies and things like that. And so I got onto that and eventually became the chairman of the committee.
Great. Thank you. Charlie, wake up, Charlie.
There you go.
Nope. Or should I say Andre?
I'm here. I'm here.
There you are.
Charlie. I'm Charlie Morgan. God knows why I'm here. I really don't know why I'm here, because I'm ashamedly not a member of AES. Although I was at that meeting 40 years ago, and somebody said, well, what can you do to turn down the guitar? And I said, you put a packing quilt over it, and that is called a 10 dB pad. And I remember that exact moment in the meeting. So that's the first time I ever got a laugh at an AES meeting. So.
And now it's boomeranged 40 years later.
Yeah. I'm a guitar player, and I was thrown into a rock and roll band in Ellensburg, Washington, when our lead singer got arrested for stealing from his father's drugstore the night before our big gig. And so I stayed up all night, learned the songs. Next thing you know, I dropped out of college after 1 quarter and came to Seattle and joined a rock and roll band. And I knew 5 guitar chords at the time, so that was pretty good. That's I really only needed 4. And somehow, somewhere, I wound up in a recording studio and I made a suggestion about how we were doing the recording. And somebody said, well, then why don't you come over here and do it? And I think the rest is history. I've made some good recordings over my years, and I've made some really bad recordings over the years. But I got introduced to live sound by Rick Chinn, and I do have a couple stories to tell about Rick later. And I also have a couple stories about Mac Perkins and how he basically carried me across the finish line of my first 100-yard dash in the audio business. I'm grateful to be here after 54 years in the audio business, and that is amazing to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Great that you're here. Mr. Perkins, you kind of grew up as a curious guy, as I know, and so where did the turn to audio come for you?
Well, my grandfather and father were both not professionally, but they were tinkerers, and my father had acquired a large amount of Second World War surplus stuff, and he was kind of an audio guy too. So there's a lot of stuff to play with, and the idea of making sound and amplifying sound and radio and all that stuff really intrigued me. So I had a lot of stuff to play with and definitely got myself burned a number of times. Made a lot of mistakes, did fun things. I remember one of the first real audio productions we did was my family lived, the house was set back probably 200 feet from the road. There were woods and there weren't many lights. So for Halloween one year, because we got a lot of traffic on Halloween because we gave out good candy, I rigged speakers out on both sides of the road coming in, 4 of them. And my father had a tape recorder, and I recorded some spooky sounds, and we would wait until people were halfway up the driveway and turn off all the lights on the front of the house and start playing strange sounds out in the woods. And that was very effective. We actually got quite a lot of candy that way. But so the idea of audio performance was sort of born then. And then in school, I went to school where there was a boys' school and there's a girls' school. And they're on opposite sides of the street, and there the twain would meet. But there were certain co-ed activities. One was theater. And, I was sure as hell not an actor, but I was a tech person, so theater it was. And we did a bunch of very amusing things there, including got in trouble with the library because I liberated 2 tape recorders from the library because I needed 4 sounds going at the same time. And they came down to play something, discovered they had nothing to do with. But anyway, wound up doing that, wound up working in broadcast for a while and a stint in the Navy, and Navy sent me to Seattle, and I came back and started a couple companies. I've probably done less sound in the last 20 or 30 years than busy building museum displays and stuff like that. But we did some environmental sound stuff that's kind of fun on those too.
So you did some recording when you were in broadcast.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, okay, so I went off to college, and that lasted 1 year because I got involved with the student radio station, and that was a lot more interesting. So I wound up with the first phone license, and bounced around to a couple of stations after I dropped out of school, and wound up working in the Boston area for a classical music station, WCRB. And among other things, Dick Kay, who's the chief engineer, he did the recordings and broadcasts for the Boston Symphony Orchestra and the Boston Pops. I was a super junior guy working, grunt work in the studio, maintaining tape recorders and junk like that. So there's no way I was doing the symphony orchestra, but I was good enough for the Pops. And so I spent a fair amount of time around Symphony Hall, and I also got to crawl around up in the ceiling, because Dick Kay was a big guy. He was probably 250 pounds, and he did not like going up in the ceiling. And they had 4 mics up there. There were Neumanns of some variety, had tubes in them. And so periodically one would get noisy and have to get hauled up and change the tube and all that. So I got roped into that and sat on a lot of rehearsals at the Boston Symphony and Boston Pops. But that was fun. And yeah, we did recordings of the Pops that were then syndicated out to various stations around the country.
Neat.
But yeah, they're Richard Pierce was the announcer, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
And he would sit in one half of the very small broadcast booth that was house left in Symphony Hall, halfway up. And the other half would be, when I was there, me and 2 Ampex 300 series tape recorders. So, just for real changes and such.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite warm in there because, of course, everything was tubes. But anyway.
Great. So, Rick, what was your first gig that you did professionally where you actually made money in doing pro audio?
I don't know. I guess about the time of the British invasion, if you remember that, there was, I was amazed, kids that didn't appear to have any musical aptitude suddenly were in bands. And literally there was a band on every street corner, and they all needed sound systems of some sort. And so I kind of started a business trying to build guitar amps using Dynaco parts. And then I came up with a kind of a formula for a sound system that sounded okay and could penetrate the din created by all the guitar amps, which was a couple of Argos sound columns with university reentrant horns on top of them. And we powered the horns separately from the columns, and so you could actually arrive at some sort of a balance.
Oh, not by amp, just separate control, so you could push the vocals through on the horns.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the horns had a low enough cutoff frequency that it wasn't fatal if you put low frequencies into them.
Yeah. Huh.
Certainly not like doing that to a 2410.
Yeah. 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 And Charlie, so when did Morgan Sound actually start officially?
Well,
a long time ago, I know.
51 years ago. I think we were, a subchapter S prior to that. And I can't really tell you the first paying gig I had, but I can tell you we didn't make a lot of money.
Yeah. Do you remember the gear that you used then?
I'm sorry?
Do you remember the gear that you used?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had 2 Voice of the Theater A7s, and I had a Phase Linear 700 that I bought from Ray Hartman, and I had to take the money to Bob Carver to his back porch and hand it through the back door because I wasn't allowed inside his lab. He would build the amplifier. And my mixer was borrowed from Rick Chinn. They were M67s mounted up in a little metal case. And probably the first real gig I have any recollection of was Leo Kottke at the University of Washington Hub Ballroom. And somebody, I think it was Jim Wolfe, told me that I needed an equalizer. So I bought and built a Metrotech 5-band stereo equalizer, and went to the gig and had everything all set up, and Leo started playing, and I realized I had not connected the equalizer. So I walked onto the stage between songs and asked Leo if he would mind taking a break while I connected the equalizer. And Leo, in his very, sort of bizarre sort of humor way, said to the folks, "I guess we're taking a break now." And, clogs, long hair, bell-bottom jeans, t-shirt, walks onto stage and asks him that. So I went back and I patched it in and I turned it on and I gave him the go signal. And the first thing I hear is, and Leo heard it too, but he started playing, and I said to myself, I wonder what this thing does. So I did that a few times and thought, this is really cool. And then Leo stopped at the end of the song and he brings me up and says, "Can we put it back the way it was before?" So heartbroken, I went back and unpatched my Metrotech 5-band EQ. I wish I still had it. It's an excellent machine. And I got paid for that. And I don't know, maybe Gary Louie was there at that time. I don't know if he was around at those.
Dan might have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that was before my time, actually.
Oh,
well,
okay.
I was there, but I wasn't at that show.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wolf had several of those equalizers in his studio.
Yeah, he liked that stuff.
Yeah.
So, Rick, have you still got that rack?
Yes, I do. Haven't used it in, I don't know, decades.
Yeah, well,
what?
It's had in my storage for 10 years. So
right.
So okay, so this is a great place to bridge. So how did you guys meet?
How did I meet Rick Chinn? Through my lovely wife, Susan Morgan.
Oh.
Susan Morgan worked at Bailey Gatzert as a teacher. She took a job when we first moved back to Seattle together. And she knew, I don't know if it was Rick's mom or Rick's aunt or someone, but she came home and she talked about this guy who had this amazing ability to build things and knew a lot about electronics, and I should know him. And me being the I don't do that sort of thing guy said, no, I'm just a guitar player. So, but somehow that we got put together. And so, I do owe that to Susan.
And how did you connect into this group?
I think that I met Rick through Jerry Jensen.
Yeah, and I think it was at Meany.
Yes, it would have been at Meany, because Jerry Jensen was the AV guy at Meany when it first opened, and I was working there for the drama department. Mm-hmm. And there was some friction between the sound people and the stage people.
Really? How did that happen?
Don't say.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, well, the sound department belonged to the School of Music, and the drama department was running the building. Mm-hmm. And so coordinating getting a sound tech for an event or anything else was a real pain in the ass. But anyway, but I think if I remember rightly, Rick and I met there, and he said, "Well, I got a shop up on Capitol Hill. You should come up sometime." And I tried calling him, but I had not been warned about his answering machine. He had an answering machine with a twist. You called, it would ring once, and then it would terminate the line and start recording. So you'd call, it would ring once, and there'd be a click, and you were expected to leave your message. I didn't know that. But anyway, that that machine was good for a lot of laughs. But yeah, he was sort of the second. He was in a mezzanine above an auto repair shop, and
Yep, I remember.
I was up there a number of times doing things.
Yeah. And so you guys did a few things together in the early days. I mean, we were talking when we first got together this evening about the Kingdom. So you all
That
did
was a few.
something with
That
the
was a
Kingdom.
few years down because, okay, so I was on staff at University of Washington, and things changed around there, and I left there in the spring of '75, and then we started PNTA in the fall of '75, but we weren't making any money. So that summer and that fall, I was doing jobs with Charlie and Rick for Concert Sound, one thing or another. And I still don't know who came up with the idea of coming to me for opening sound for the Kingdom, which opened in
76.
spring '76. But they came to me and they said, okay, we're going to have 4,000 performers and yada, yada, yada. And I said, oh, shit. And I went down and looked at the place and said, yeah, fine. So got to get everybody in. So it's going to be all hands on deck and every piece of equipment any of us owned. And somehow we brought it off. I mean, it was pretty wild. There was a stage right out in the middle of the building. And then there's a huge stage at the north end of the building with, I forget how many orchestras on it, but there were well over 100 musicians up there. And then in the stands at the north end of the building behind that was a huge choir or chorale, or anyway, whole bunch of singers.
Mm-hmm.
And so our job was to make sure that there was enough monitor from one point to the end to the next, and to get intelligible sound out to the punters in the rest of the building. And we did succeed in we did get a feed into the building system. We also had speakers stacked on the corners of the platform out in the middle. And we very quickly figured out some really interesting things about that building. The reverb time at low frequencies was about 15 seconds. I mean, if you put anything below about 100 hertz out there, it never went away. And we had our test. We had a 2x4 somebody had left, and if we smacked it onto our platform in the middle of the room, I think the best we got was 18 distinct echoes.
In a round building.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting place to do sound in.
Yeah. Huh.
But as I say, and we also discovered that, because we had local systems, we discovered that there were, I think, 4 different power vaults for the Kingdom, and ground was definitely not the same between them. Fortunately, I had a bunch of 1-to-1 isolation transformer boxes, and we had those on all the feeds, point A to point B. Yeah. And yeah, I think the worst I measured was about 6 volts between the grounds on various points.
Wow. And
there's right underneath the stage in the middle, under second base when it's configured for a ball field, there was a tie line box. And the lines went from there up to the sound booth and then back up to the north end. So I don't know how many feet of cable there were between point A and point B, but yeah, but it worked. It didn't hum. It seemed to get loud enough to keep people happy. So, and the logistics of it were pretty amazing. And I remember at one point we had rented wireless mics from Gibson Sound and Light, which was the local place, and they're the only people who had any of that kind of stuff at that point, and they were junk. And Danny Kaye was introducing an act down at the south end of the building, and his mic was cutting out. And we said, "Oh shit!" So Charlie grabbed a 58, he plugged it into a mic cable and started running. And we were just plugging cables together as fast as we could go. I think we put 400 feet of cable out there, and he gave Danny Kaye the mic, and he brought up the fader, and we were back in business. But
I want to remind Mac that we took Northwest Sound 545s and a radial horn and spaced them at some distance apart on the first, in front of the very first row, and tipped them back and pointed them up into the stands. And when they were doing sound check, I would walk along through the choir. Whenever I found three people who could sing together in tune, I would put a microphone there.
That end was all yours. I was busy in the middle, but that would make sense. Do you remember how many mics there were up in that choir area?
Only 5 or 6.
Yeah, I remember we were rather constrained by number of inputs we had.
Yeah. And let's see, Betty and her brother were in high school at that time.
Oh,
and she said that the choir, the origin of the choir was Seattle Public Schools. So they had high school choirs from all over the city, and that's what combined to make that mass choir. But I think two of her brothers were in the choir.
Oh.
I didn't know them at the time.
And Danny would direct, and the directors would watch Danny. That's how they kept some sort of semblance of sync together.
And Danny was the orchestra conductor,
yeah,
as well as having just launched and purchased the Mariners.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's like it's astounding that we got away with it. But
yeah. Remember the rehearsal with all the mounted horses? They had 50
the
cops on 50 horses, and they were carrying state flags, and they were
no, they're golf carts.
No, there were horses too, and they were going to do a parade around the periphery of the bowl, and at rehearsal there were 2 or 3 guys chasing the horses with a wheelbarrow and a flat bottom shovel, trying to keep up and not.
I also remember they had 50 attractive young ladies driving golf carts, and whoever was choreographing decided it'd be a really swell idea to have them do the crisscross. Most of them were too young to have driver's licenses, and there were whoever provided the golf carts had a little body and fender work to do afterward.
So
it came off in the end at the real thing, but the rehearsals were like very.
Yeah.
So what were some other memorable gigs that you guys did together?
I remember Rick and I getting set out on a short tour for Manhattan Transfer, who were actually delightful to work with.
Yeah.
The guy they had mixing front of house was a serious knobby, and he insisted on having a limiter that he could play with. So we gave him a limiter to play with, but it wasn't connected to anything.
That was Doug Botnick, who was
good studio guy, but
he was Bruce Botnick's brother, and Bruce Botnick's claim to fame was the Doors.
Okay. Well, I listened to his studio stuff, and it's great, but he was not a live sound guy. But they were a hoot, and we did. Charlie would get a lot of these bookings that were like 4 nights. It'd be either
Spokane, corner of a tour.
Yeah, they either Spokane or Pullman, Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver, BC.
Right.
And invariably the worst possible sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd pull stuff down, load in the truck, drive most of the night, get wherever you're going, pull it out, set it up, that routine. But I I don't know. They also blurred together for a while. I remember trying to horse a truck around downtown Portland, trying to get into what was
Paramount.
what is now the Opera House, or not the Opera House, but the
Portland
Schnitzer
Civic.
Festival. Yeah, it's Paramount then. But, Civic too. Well, I remember that ramp in the Civic. You had to back the truck down, and there's a trick where you bump forward with the gate unlatched, have somebody ready to catch stuff. You'd bump forward up the ramp, slap up the door, and then people would catch the stuff as it tried to roll off the back. Because otherwise they'd jam the door.
So, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
I remember meeting you at the Paramount one day. You had a Soundcraft Series 2, the original suitcase mixer. And but what did you have? You were running Northwest Sound then for speakers?
Northwest Sound 545s and some 590s and some 581. Anything that started with 5, I bought.
You were a 5. Okay.
I was a 5 guy.
Yeah.
I think Rick Chinn and I sat in the Paramount and did Phoebe Snow and mixed on a motherboard. The Harrison had built these tiny consoles that were about, I don't know, maybe 24 inches wide and had these very short faders on them. Rick had what we called the compression channel for Phoebe, and I had this regular channel, and we had our hands on the console because we didn't have a compressor and we didn't know how to deal with how strident her voice got. So Rick would ride the strident channel and I would ride the regular channel, and we would blend them back together on this little tiny console. And we didn't have enough snake cable to set up in the back. So we were down on the side there in the little alcove area, mixing from there. Yeah.
So it's changed a little since then for you.
Yeah. It has changed quite a bit. Yes, it has. And in some ways, I can't really say for the better. I mean, I love it when I get to hear 4 samples of that 10 kilohertz waveform come through that digital processor. Because that's about all that you get is 4 samples. And they wonder why it sounds so weird.
So, Rick, one of your early gigs was that you were involved in the building of K. Smith, as I recall.
Not quite the building, but certainly getting it from waiting at the intersection for the light to change. So I was one of the first people hired there, and I had heard that there was this studio gonna open up and operate downtown, and it was going to be a real 24-track studio. And so I went down and I met Lee Hurley and talked my way into a gig. And so when I got there, it was pretty much wired and pretty much online, but through the process of a year or so, I got to see the inside of every major structure in the building, which also included splicing a 27 pair snake inside one of the bass traps.
Well, at least it was quiet.
Yeah, it was quiet. It was also warm. It was also scratchy.
Yeah.
And one of the carpenters managed to run a large nail through the snake.
Ouch.
Mm-hmm.
And so, fortunately, there was enough slack on the cable, and the way that we spliced it was to cut it at the hole and stripe it back, and we just put two Elco connectors on it.
Mm-hmm.
It was simple. It was easy. No soldering.
What year were you there, Rick?
73, 74, I think.
So that's pretty impressive. I mean, I know Lee Hurley over the years as well, and he's a pretty you must have told him a good story. I mean, you're not that you weren't competent. You were clearly qualified for the job, but I mean, how did you get this? How did you do that?
We talked for a while, then he asked to see something that I had built. And so I had this electronic crossover and twin 30-watt amps that I used for my stereo. I was built into a rack panel enclosure, and it was built on perf board. And I took that down and showed him. That was it.
That's great.
Was that the beginning of Unita Audio?
Yeah.
I had a lot of Unita Audio stuff in my racks, Rick.
That's good. Unita? I gotta.
Let's see. So, and then Rick, I'm going to stick with you for a minute. So you've worked for, I think, almost every audio manufacturer in the Seattle area, if not beyond Seattle, in one capacity or another over the years.
Yeah.
And so I worked at Tapco with you I was there for about 2 weeks, I think, about 8 weeks all in all. But what were the kind of things that you were doing for Tapco when you were there?
Well, I got hired on to do R&D, but by the time I left, I had done tech support. I had ran the repair activity, wrote the manuals, planned new products. What else? I don't know.
Yeah, a few hats.
Yeah,
I tested the resistance of the pots on the first Tapco mixer down at Mukilteo with me and Greg Mackey.
I made a test jig to test the viscosity of the pot goo that they used in the cheap CTS pots to try to make them feel as good as an Alps pot. And it was a weighted arm that went between two sensors, and an arbitrary counter. And the buildos knew that if the pot fell in this range of numbers, that it was good. Not very scientific, but it worked.
Some rigor, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. I'm running out of my so somebody actually asked a question for you, Rick, which was how you acquired your knowledge of the large repertoire of microphones and their histories and placements.
Ooh, well, okay. Some record albums, like the Command albums that Tom Fine's father did, had microphone lists on them. They used this mic on this and this mic on that. And I found other articles occasionally, like in Audio Magazine. And then I just started acquiring and reading and devouring microphone catalogs. And along the way, I bought my share and I've used them. And so I have that experience as well.
Yeah. Thank you. So Charlie,
Yes,
what's the biggest change, aside from the fact that you're not using Shure 4-channel mixers anymore? What's the biggest change for you from when you started to, I don't know, the last 5 years in the PA systems that you use?
Well, it's huge. I mean, we have Jeff Cox to thanks for bringing line arrays into the United States from France. I forget the gentleman's name. That was L Acoustic stuff. And that sort of started a real renaissance of how loudspeakers are put together. I'm a member of Live Sound something on Facebook, and you see all of these giant systems that are out in arenas and out in stadiums. You know, a lot of sound on stage and a lot of Maryland sound, et cetera, and they were just stacks and stacks and stacks of PA gear. To be honest with you, I've heard some of those systems sound really good. And even in the Coliseum, when we were doing racks and so when we were stacking PA on the stage in the Coliseum, we had some really great sounding shows. I mean, I can still sort of hear Michael McDonald when he came in late and couldn't do a sound check, and we did it on the fly. Probably one of the best shows I've ever heard in there. That and Third World. Because there was no monkeying around, you know, you just got to mix up and you went with it, let the band sort of drive. You know, the amount of money that my company and everybody who's a PA company these days has to spend to be able to put a production out the door is phenomenal. And that's changed. The margin that you make for doing it, that has not changed. It's still very expensive and not a get rich quick sort of thing to do. And part of that is because I don't tour anymore. And my company really doesn't tour. We're what you would call a regional sound company. We don't like touring. We like to be home. But I've seen so many people who don't pay attention to what it is they're creating. They look at the knobs, they look at the colors, they look at the waves, they look at the graphics, they look at what they're mixing rather than listen to what they're mixing. And that might sound strange coming from a guy who only has one ear. I've only had one ear my entire career. And it's, I think, one of the reasons I hear differently than other people. But I've been in the room with a lot of people who would agree with me that it sounds good, that what I'm doing, it sounds good, and I would say what you're doing sounds good. So a lot of the people who work at my shop now get lectures about this, about listening to what it is that they do. So one of the greatest changes that's happened in the last 5 years is that we have over-technologically we've overdriven the technology into this, and not everybody knows how to use it. Now, I'm not to say that it isn't useful. I'm not saying that it doesn't create great sound. I've been to some really good shows at Climate Pledge Arena in the last couple of years. Peter Gabriel, and not the last Who, but the Who before. Articulate sounding, well mixed, and you know, if they don't throw me out of the room for going up to the sound engineer to tell him I think he's doing a great job, I get the message across because these guys spend a lot of time. They have great tools. I guess what I'm saying is that the tools that we have now, the predictive calculations, where to hang loudspeakers, being able to virtually turn them on in a venue, being able to avoid catastrophe long before you even get to the job, has become very, very, what would I say? Important isn't the word. It's more than important. Critical, I guess, to putting a great show out on the road. And being a regional sound company, we're expected to perform just as well as a touring company. You know, I mean, Claire Global has taken over the live audio industry, and they have some great engineers and they have some great sound systems and some that aren't so good. But it's all up to the person. That's the one thing that hasn't changed. It's the man at the desk who can make it or break it. Okay, I'm done ranting.
Thank you.
For the moment.
Well, but and I'll give you a little plug here, because I mean, I hired your company about a dozen years or so ago when the Seattle Opera was doing a simulcast into what was then the Key Arena, and I hadn't been near a PA system of any size in years. And I remember watching Aaron Fisher set it up and following him around as he's tuning it. And I was like, you can tune to this area, and when back last time I touched a big sound system, it was, one graphic EQ and that's it, right? But I remember walking out on the floor, and Spade Jenkins, the general director of the the Seattle Opera, was there with one of his board members, and we were doing a playback, just listening test before the show, and Spade called me over, and he says, I was here when Pavarotti was here, and they had this extravagant sound system and all this stuff. He says, I walked out, and he said, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard, to have it sound so clear in such a big hall. So that was a great stereo you brought for us, and we really appreciated it.
Well, thank you. Aaron was a really good guy, and
Yeah.
Aaron had a good pair of ears on a good head.
Yeah. No, it was a great crew. So Mac, I'm just going to kind of go round robin until you guys start self-generating stories for me, because you're making me work too hard here. So you've done a lot of theater sound over the years, and you've been involved in that. I mean, that's primarily where you.
Theater was really my niche, and I will say that I know probably more about theater lighting than I know about theater sound, but I wound up being a sound designer for most of the productions that were done here in Seattle for quite a while. And this was, mid-late 70s, early 80s in there. Live reinforcement for theater was not in a good place. There's a lot of really ghastly stuff being done. We're using the predecessor of line arrays, which were the Bozak columns, which are actually a really good quality speaker if you used them right. They're very narrow vertically. I've still got some, and they're all cone. They sound good. They're not harsh, but there are definitely some tricks to them. They are not a huge, powerful PA. That's the big thing. The big thing. I mean, my niche was reinforcement. Get the vocals out there. That was the job. And I'll tell you, I was the king of foot mics.
Yep.
I'd have five mics across the front, and I'd have an Orban parametric in each mic preamp channel, and I would have those things ring tuned to where I could get more gain off of them than you would think you could. It worked really, really well. But that's a different approach. I mean, what's going on now, it's all wireless. Everything is, it's interesting. And I worked with a couple of local high schools because I knew people in the departments. And the last one I did, which was for Ruben Van Kempen at Roosevelt High School when he was retiring, we wound up with 35 wireless channels for a high school production. It was freaking insane. And I had 2.5 people on the board. The half person was reading the cue list and telling people what they were about to do. But man, that's nuts. And so I don't think I could keep up with a modern full PA theater production. I mean, I've seen some of them. I've seen some good ones. I've seen some bad ones. Like Charlie said, the person behind the desk is the whole game.
Yeah.
And I ran quite a number of shows because I was sound designer for a couple of local community theaters, and they would perform on the weekends, which worked out. And very, very few volunteer operators really were interested in working that hard.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you are part of the performance. You're part of the orchestra. You can screw it so easily. And I've had operators in various places that do things by the numbers, and the shit just comes out and lays there. And I mean, there's a show at the Rep that got extended, and the operator couldn't stay with it. And I've been the designer, been running for 4.5 weeks. So I came in and I mixed the last week. And halfway, we get to intermission, and I look down, and the ClearCom light is blinking like crazy. So I pick up the handset, and stage manager says, "Go back to the green room now." I said, "Oh shit, what have I done?" And so I went back there, and the show was Girl Crazy. Harry Grainer was playing the lead. He's pretty well known now, not so well known then. Wonderful guy, fantastic performer. Came up and he says, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, the rhythm is different." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, we're getting reactions that we haven't had." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, we're getting laughs and reactions from the audience that we haven't had." And so I said, "Okay, I'm mixing a show. It's dynamic. Things change. There are orchestra cues, there are vocal cues. You're selling a show. It's a musical." So, and I said, "Well, I can try to go back to." He said, "Oh, no, 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 no. Don't get me wrong. It's great. We're enjoying it. But it's a change." And I mean, I knew that it was being run by the numbers pretty much before then, but I didn't realize how much.
Well, and the impact that it actually makes, right? I mean, it is, the being there with it rather than just watching it go by.
Well, I mean, it's all the cheesy little tricks, you get a big swell, you ride it up a little bit and you drop it back. And it's part of creating a show.
Yeah.
I mean, I love doing that. I enjoyed it a lot. But
does that still exist with modern? I mean, I guess it would, right? It's just in a different way, right?
No two performances are exactly the same.
Right.
If they were, you could run it on autopilot.
Right.
And I know people that still do that stuff. There is still a fair amount of live, but it's all run off of matrices now. And because they've got 80 inputs.
Yeah.
And there's no way. And I mean, when we were doing the high school thing with gazillion wireless mics, one person was mixing the leads.
Right.
That was her job. Make sure that the leads are out there. Make sure you can understand them. That's the bottom line. But,
Yep. Well, it kind of feeds on what Charlie was saying too, right? In terms of we have all this great technology now that can be very useful, but it can also get in your way.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, when DSP processors came out and that stuff, you can make a speaker rig really sound good.
Right.
Really match a room well.
You can do the opposite too.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Well, we all remember when the third octave analyzers came out, and everybody would come out and they'd make a straight line across, and it's like, oh my God, you can't listen to it. But
well,
you got to understand the tools.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a technical kind of guy. I'm more of that than anything else. But I will spend however much time it takes to figure out how something works.
Yeah.
And I will admit that I've spent many hours in the middle of the night trying to figure out what the hell this thing just did to me and how to fix it.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Charlie?
Matthew.
Yes, sir.
I want to jump in here for a second.
Please do.
Okay. These two guys, Rick Chinn and Mac Perkins, have saved my life more times than I have time to tell you about. But I'm going to tell you two quick stories. One of them is Rick Chinn built Mac Perkins built a little box that went inside my amp racks that took balanced lines and then it unbalanced them and it sent them off to my phase linear amplifiers, none of which were balanced, but it allowed me to run an XLR connector into them. And we were apparently doing some repair work at the shop, and we got the white wire and the wire with the Teflon sleeve on it reversed on one of the connectors. We were doing a show at the Paramount and we're doing sound check and I'm going, this doesn't sound right. I mean, I knew it didn't sound right, but nothing looked wrong. What would happen is you would turn the knob to the left and you would hear the low frequency. You would turn the knob to the right and you would hear the high frequency. And so you knew that you could get a balance that way. But what happened was when it was wired out the way it was, which was incorrectly, the louder it got, the more out of phase low frequency content was applied to the high frequency drivers. And so in the first half of the show, we blew 8 high frequency drivers on one side of the PA. And I had more horns on the truck because we were going to be heading into Portland the next day. And so we pulled them in and we restacked them and we finished the next half of the show. And I just sat in the stage manager's office and waited for the disaster. We blew 16 drivers that night. That would be 2440 drivers, which weren't very robust. So I went back I was heading back to the shop and I called Mac Perkins and I went over to PNTA and we offloaded my 2 amp racks. Mac got out his multimeter and he started to look and I'm going, I wonder what's going on here. And Mac goes, wait a minute, these are wired wrong. So one side of the PA was wired wrong. We fixed that. I went to the shop, stayed up all night, re-diaphragming 16 drivers, picked up my guy, drove to Portland, did the best show we'd ever had with that group the next day. So Mac Perkins, bless your heart. Next story. The arena, the Seattle Center Arena, the RF trap, as we know it. I'm doing Dionne Warwick, and we have a PA set up, and it's humming, and I can't get it to stop humming, and it's just no matter what I do, any fader that I raise, it hums. I don't know what to do, and I managed to get hold of Rick Chinn, who was working at Seattle Center. And Rick comes down and he says, I've got a transformer. We'll put a transformer in the line and that should stop the ground loop that you're getting. So those of you who know Rick know that he doesn't get excited very often. And he's sitting there and he's looking at this transformer and he's going, let's see now. Was it 1 and 3 or was it 2 and 4? I don't remember which way I'm supposed to connect this. Jerry Lawn, the promoter, is standing there going, Charlie, we have to start the show. And I said, well, I don't know, Rick. Pick a couple numbers. So Rick wires up this transformer. We plug it in, and the PA is dead quiet. And the promoter says, okay, house lights, go. And I go, we don't know that the PA actually works. We don't know that it actually works. And they bring Dionne Warwick out onto the stage, and I'm standing there, I'm going, this is either going to work out well or I'm going to get shot at sunrise. And she stands on stage while the band vamps, and she doesn't say anything for the first 120 seconds that she's on stage, walking back and forth. I'm going, just say something, please. And that's when Rick Chinn, one time, of many times, saved my life. 2 incredible guys, I want you to know.
Charlie, I remember your PA, you were running short on snake space, so you drove high and low down the same pair.
Yeah, that's my fault.
And I didn't like that very much, and because it seemed like almost every time we set up a system, it hummed, and that pissed me off.
Yeah,
And
yeah, but
I
I
remember,
hadn't gone to the balanced line church yet.
well, I don't remember. I think it might have been the arena because arena was bad. I mean, there's a lot of RF down there,
Well, yeah,
and
Mo, Larry, and Curly are right up the hill.
yeah, and I remember I was down there, and Charlie, you were running late, and I was down there getting stuff set up with a couple of your guys, and we got it all set up, and I had I had brought some of my own transformer boxes because I couldn't deal with the hum. And we're getting ready. We're about 20 minutes out from sound check, and I'd already tested the system. I knew it worked. And you came in and you said, What's wrong? What's wrong? The system's not on. I said, yeah, it's on. He said, no, it's not on. And I said, yeah, it is. And he says, well, I don't hear anything. I said, that's the point. And I picked up a mic and said, here. And he said,
Yeah. Yeah, I needed the hum field for reassurance, right?
When I was at Mackey, we used the Mercer Arena as an RF test environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd take a prototype board down there. We'd set it up on the floor and see if we could make it pick up one of the stations. It was a good test environment.
Try moving the cable at right angles and in line with the tower.
Yeah.
Or opening up the stomp box and bending the capacitor the other way and get the RF to stop going through the guitar amp.
Yeah,
Whatever it took, right?
Guitars and guitar amps is a whole different area.
Yeah. Charlie, you know a thing or two about those.
I guess I do, yeah.
So Rick, let's go back in time again. So I've been prompting, I'm getting hints here from different people. So you worked at Eagles for a while as well, eh?
Yeah. Summer of '67, I had a summer job after finishing 2 years at Olympic College in Bremerton and getting my induction notice. I got a summer job at Electrocraft, 1408 6th Avenue. It's where the Seattle Sheraton is now. And worked in the repair shop. And Boyd Grafmeyer came in one day and rented some A7s and a Macintosh amp, and I don't remember what else. And then they needed somebody to set it up at the Eagles, which was just around the corner and up the street. And then it occurred to them that they needed somebody to operate it. And so I got volunteered, and that turned into being I don't know if I was the first, but at least in 1967, I was the live sound guy at Eagles. And I did that until I had to appear for induction, which was the 30th of October, 1967. And I remember that because we had a Halloween show with Chrome Circus. And then the next day I'm, standing on the dotted line and raising my hand and saying, I do.
And it's the wrong kind of I do.
Yeah, it was. And then I'm on a plane to San Antonio, and I became USAF property for 4 years.
Wow. Huh. And when you got back, what were some of the first things you did when you got back?
Well, I was allowed to work at a civilian job when I was in, and three of my duty stations were at long-range radar sites. And so one of them was at Point Arena in California, just down the road a bit from where Mark Gander lives now. And I had permission from the commander to travel into San Francisco and work at a music store. So I did. I worked at Don Weir's Music City on Columbus, right near the Tower Records there, repairing amps and even building an amp or two. And we built a disco mixer, and I did that when I was not working at the site. So maybe every 12 days or so, because I was a shift worker, and we worked the shift workers worked all 3 shifts. And I don't, there was a sequence to it, and I don't remember it. But I had enough time when I was off that I could drive to San Francisco and do a shift or 2 at the music store and then drive back. And then my next site after that was at Blaine, right a mile off of Birch Bay.
Right.
And parts of the site are still there, but now it's part of Whatcom County Parks. And I worked at Bandstand in Bellevue.
Yeah.
And that's how I met Rube Tubin. And Rube had this dream of owning and operating a concert level PA system. And he asked me to design it for him, which I did. And then suddenly I got orders for Korea and had to leave. And Richard Irwin, Dennis Darby, who's part of Northwest Sound later, and a couple of other friends put the finishing touches on it and assembled it. And their first gig was, I don't remember what theater, maybe it was at the Moore with Frank Zappa. So I got back in September 71 and had a job waiting for me with Rube. So that's what I did.
Great. And did you tour much then, or was it?
Well, no, it's kind of like what Charlie was doing. We'd pick up a corner of a tour.
Yeah.
And Rube was friends with Bill. Come on. Oh, okay. Senior moment. Brain fart. Can't remember his last name. Anyway, Bill was Northwest Releasing before Jerry Lawn. And Bill owned a house in West Seattle, south of the Fauntleroy dock. And Rube and Judy Seitz were 2 of his tenants that lived there. So that was the connection. So we did all kinds of stuff. Wayne Newton, maybe. Boy, I should know better, but I'm drawing blanks.
You've done a couple of things since then, I think.
We did a lot of shows, and it was Seattle, Portland, Spokane, Vancouver sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think at one time we even got down to like Reading. Oh, and we got down to San Jose because that's how I discovered Original Joe's Restaurant, and which was the kind of like the predecessor of 13 Coins. And then we got down to Santa Monica, I guess. Rube picked up a corner of the Rock and Roll Revival Tour with Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, the Shirelles. I don't remember all of them. That was fun. Yeah.
I'll bet.
Yeah. It was all that old rock and roll and all those old rock and rollers. There's stories there.
Yeah. I'm guessing there are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would have been Seattle Audio originally with Irwin and
Darby,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
I still have one of their stickers on one of my pictures over here.
They had met Bob Stern through Rickstein, and Bob would loan Larry gear from time to time, because Bob had a lot more gear than Larry did. And so they created this company, Seattle Audio, and they had a shop space in the Radar Electric building up on the third floor.
Oh.
And they were kind of the building shop for Stern. And it was kind of I don't know, I guess their design to become indispensable enough that they became part of Stern's company, which is what happened. And Stern got bigger and bigger, and then landed the Crosby, Stills and Nash, Joni Mitchell, Jackson Browne crowd, and did their sound for several years.
We thought we lost you, Charlie.
Probably had to change the battery.
I had to feed the beast. I had to put drops in my ear.
Oh yeah. So Charlie, my favorite memory of that meeting 40 years ago was when they asked for rock and roll stories, and I think they were expecting, trashing of hotel rooms, but you told the story of the water mic, so I'm going to ask you. I've waited 40 years for this, Charlie.
Well, so I toured with Gordon Lightfoot for 12 years as his front of house engineer and equipment supplier. So Lightfoot was a delightful man, a wonderful songwriter, and sometimes he could be very difficult to deal with. And he had his band under control using fear. Fear was the main driver of the control he exercised over his band. All great musicians, by the way. And Lightfoot did not care for bass, but he had a bass player. And so the bass player was always getting a lot of flack from Gordon. And so he would stand back as far as he could, back against the back line. So we were in Vancouver, BC at the Queenie Theatre doing 2 shows. And it was the last 2 shows of the year. And we were pretty much ready to be done for the year. And I came up with this idea of using Teflon sleeving, that little tiny stuff that you put around the drain wire. And I had a microphone cable that had a really funky jacket on it and an extra conductor in it. I don't know how I ended up with it. So I connected the Teflon to the extra conductor and I pulled it through this 15-foot microphone cable so that I had, enough on the end that I could work with. And on the one end, I epoxied a 4-way nasal spray bottle. And on the other end, I went out the connector and underneath it, and I drilled a hole at an angle into an SM58 so that it came up behind the grill of the microphone. So the microphone still functioned, nothing had been damaged. I just managed to sneak it up in there, got it all the way up and right next to the grill and snipped it off. And when you primed it with water and you stepped on it, it would shoot a stream of water about 5 feet at high velocity, straight out of the head of the microphone. So after the first show, I call a big band meeting. Okay, guys, look, I'm getting nothing but bass bleed through the microphone. And when we do the song, Circle is Small, and you guys sing your parts, I can see it in your eyes and hear it, etc., etc. You have to sing, man. You got to sing. You got to step up to the microphone, open your mouth wide, and sing. And don't worry about how loud it is. I'll take care of that. So the drummer was in on it. And when they got to that point, he stood up and he pushed on the 4-way nasal spray bottle. And the look on Rick Haynes, the bass player's face, I'll never forget, because we filled the back of his throat with water at high velocity. And that, I have a drawing of it somewhere. It's called the SM58-H2O. Not a very unique name, but adequately, describe what we were doing. Those were good times. Yeah. Gord never knew.
He never, what?
No,
Gord never knew?
No, he never knew. No, he did not know. There were other pranks that we pulled that night as well, but that's the one that has something to do with audio. So, Gord and I, we fought all the time. He wanted his acoustic guitar to be mic'd with an SM58, and I didn't want to do that. It had to have a certain shape. He and Jose Feliciano had the same thing about the shape of the grill. So at least I got him to use an AKG C535EB, and I set it on the smooth roll-off. And I could get a pretty good guitar sound out of it. Never got a direct feed out of the acoustic. And it's the same deal with the SM58 vocal microphone. And Gord had this thing he would do. If it's too loud, he'll back away from the microphone like this, and I'll push the fader up to get the audio, and he'll jump in on it and go, woof. And during sound check, his favorite thing was to go, there's one, there's one. And he would hear this, come back from the audience. Or if it was not loud enough, he would change it up. I never knew, back is too loud, in is too, I never knew. So, and depending on how much he drank that night, he didn't know. He just was constantly playing with me with the audio. There were some nights I got some pretty good sound out of that 545. The Northwest Sound boxes and the 581s, and there were nights when I just wish I could just go away. Yeah, but who hasn't been there, right?
Yep, I think we all have some of those.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, guys. You had another story for us, I thought, Charlie, about Mac or Rick, and I don't remember which one it was.
Well, I already told both of those stories, but I guess I could tell you what it takes to be a road dog, because I'm pretty sure that everybody who is here knows what it takes to get the job done. And Rick Chinn and I were driving to San Francisco in a Ryder rental truck. And Rick's handle at the time was the Bonsai Boy on the CB radio. And we're going down by Eugene, Oregon. And I say to Rick, go ahead and pass this guy. Come on, man, Flora, pass this guy. And the engine was revved pretty high, and there was this major explosion as the crankshaft went out through the bottom of the engine. And we pull over, and we're screwed. And there were no cell phones in those days. So we were just about a mile from an intersection. I knew that based on the sign we had seen. It's late at night. It must have been 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I walk to the gas station and I call the emergency number, and the owner comes, and he happens to have a rental truck, and he rents it to me. And I drive it back up and do a loop around and back up facing the wrong way on the freeway. And Rick and I start cross-loading when a trooper comes along and says, you can't do that. So now we have to haul the stuff out of the truck, down the freeway about, 75 feet, put it in the other truck. And we did that. And we got going, and we made it to San Francisco. And we were pretty tired, but we loaded in, and we did the show at the San Francisco Opera House. And we had to be in San Jose the next day. So we drove overnight, and we got to this motel, and we checked in, and we set up a wake-up call for 7 a.m. And I know that we were pretty beat, because the next thing I remember hearing was Rick Chinn saying, is that 7 a.m. or 7 p.m.? and he hangs up the phone and he says, "Charlie, we are in shit. It's 7 p.m." We did not know where the hall was. We just knew it was called the City Center, Civic Auditorium. So I ran every red light in San Jose. We find it, we back in. They've already got another sound system set up on the stage. And I come walking in and Gord says, "We thought you were dead." And I said, "I got to get set up." And Ed Sarkeesian was the promoter. And he says, "You're not doing the sound tonight." And I said, "We are doing the sound tonight." I had to get paid. I could not miss that gig. And it just so happened that stage, they had 3 levels. And you could go down a level or you could go up a level. And so there were 3 stages that were on this sort of little, rack, I guess you would call it. They took the Renegear down into the hole. We loaded in. I went out into the audience and got people to help me haul my mixing console out into the thing and haul the cables up and everything. It was 7 o'clock, 7:10 when we hit the dock. At 8:05, we were ready to start the show without a sound check. And we did that show. And one of the greatest memories of that show is that was the night Gordon did The Ghosts of Cape Horn live for the first time ever for anybody in San Diego. And I thought the roof was going to come off I'm getting goosebumps. I thought the roof was going to come off the place when he finished that song. A memorable song. If you don't know it, look it up. And that's what it took, man. When you would say, "We did what we have to do. The show had to go on. You made sure that you got there. You're a road dog. You don't bail." And Rick Chinn, bless your heart, man. You did a good job blowing that truck up, and you've always been a great partner to me, always.
So let me add to that. There was this doofus in a Cadillac, and he kept pulling in front of us and slowing down, and that was part of the problem. And then I missed a gear change, and I was in the wrong gear, so the engine was really revved high. And then when we decided to pass him, then we gave him a good bath in engine oil at the expense of the crankshaft in the truck.
Yeah.
And I'll point out that the Bay Area show was in San Jose, I believe, at San Jose Civic, and the show after that was in San Diego. And so we drove from San Jose straight through to San Diego, and that is a long ass drive.
Yeah.
And so by the time we got to the motel, we were toast.
Yeah. Thank you. I know I don't know my California geography, but I know that sound when you said, "Is that 7 a.m. or 7 p.m.?"
Yeah. I remember sleeping and hearing, watching the ambient light go up and down, and hearing traffic noise change, and hearing it rain and then not rain, and it seemed like this was a little too a little too nice for us to have the luxury of this much sleep.
Yeah.
And finally, I couldn't stand it, and I picked up the phone.
Right on. Well, you saved my life, Rick.
So let me tell something about the Seattle Center Opera House. So that room was created in 1962 for the World's Fair, and the acoustician was Paul Veneklausen out of Santa Monica. Definitely an old fart, and definitely an old school old fart. And but in some regards, he was ahead of his time. And the Opera House got a 3-channel stereo system, left, center, right, and it was bi-amplified in 1962. But consoles like we have today were the topic of pipe dreams. And so the console for that sound system was 16 Davin rotary attenuators with the big knobs, and 4 per channel. So and you had to patch the microphone into the right mic preamp, which got patched into the right input on the mixer, and it only went to that one channel. There were no pan pots, there was no routing, there was no equalization. There were high pass filters ahead of the power amp. So if you knew that you wanted to get rid of some low end, that's where you could do it. But other than that, there was no equalization, and it depended on the system sounding good to begin with. And so the 4th channel of 4 pots was what they called solo balance, which was $1,000 word for monitor. But we didn't have any floor monitors. We typically would use like an A7 for a monitor, and you could just wheel it in and park it somewhere. And since there was no equalization, we had to do it based on microphone choice. And we had a pretty good collection of microphones. And the default cardioid condenser microphone there was a KM84. And we probably had a dozen of them. And we had a bunch of EV stuff. And there were a half dozen SM58s, which for some reason, maybe because they were single D and not Electro Voice, were always stored in a file cabinet. Whereas the other microphones were in bins that you could just walk in and grab. But the bottom line is here, that since there were virtually no controls on the console, the way you got your sound was a choice of microphone and just straight ahead balance. And people today, well, I'll being an old guy, I can say kids today don't understand that. And you give them a digital mixer that's got all this stuff on it, and they've got to play with every damn knob on the thing. And
move the mic 6 inches, you'll be better off.
Yeah, exactly. End of rant.
Yeah, you get 3 old farts out talking about audio, and we always get back to the days where there was, no EQ, and you actually had to use your ears and the mics, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, when I was a lad, we had a tumbleweed for a pet.
And school was uphill both ways.
That's right.
So Charlie, that explains why your dogs have got the kind of fur they do.
I just wanted to say that one of the reasons Bob Kavanaugh was interested in what I was going to say tonight, because he was wondering if I was going to break my code of silence about all of his secrets, and I've decided not to break the code, Bob. Your secrets are safe with me.
Just Bob's secrets, nobody else's?
Well, he's the only one who mentioned my name prior to the thing, so I felt like I should acknowledge that.
Okay.
Hey, I did want to say one other thing. I've mentioned Susan Morgan earlier on in this thing. Many of you did not know Susan Morgan. Many of you did know her. You know what she did for me and for Morgan Sound as a company. And she passed away 7 years ago, and I created the Susan Morgan Memorial Foundation at the Edmonds Community College. And that foundation has been funding tuition for those women who are interested in becoming involved in the audio industry, not necessarily as a sound technician, not necessarily like a musician or a guitar player or whatever. And the fund continues today. If you felt like you might want to make a small contribution, you can do that by going to the Edmonds Community College giving page and specifying Susan Morgan Memorial Fund.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that is good. That's great that you did that. We miss her.
Yes.
Well, we have taken about as much of our time, our listeners' time, as I was hoping to take. Any last words from anybody? I see Rick has left the room, so we don't have to worry about him. Any questions that anybody has online that they'd like to pass to this august group?
Let's see. There was a question about just predictive tools. Anything you want to elaborate on what you've seen for predictive tools these days?
Sure, I can, briefly talk about that. The predictive tools being, you can start with ease modeling. Ease modeling is very useful when you're designing a system for a fixed installation. You can virtually place the loudspeakers in any room. But now the big thing is immersive audio, and you have to have these tools in order to know what the outcome is going to be. There's, now you're going to ask me to tell you the names of some of these programs, and for some odd reason, could it be my age? I can't tell you the names of them, but there are JBL makes them, L Acoustics makes them, Meyer Sound makes them. Meyer Sound has some really good tools that they use. They're all very sophisticated. They have steep learning curves. And they're good for the soul, I guess I would say.
Have you done anything with immersive? Any of your systems become immersive, Charlie, or?
Just the ones that fell off the truck out at Puget Sound, but other than that, nothing. No, I have not. Yeah, but when we did a big system out at Angel of the Winds Arena, and we put in 164 JBL A6 boxes, the VTX box, small box, full range box, and we worked with JBL on getting the tunings and the layouts and the angles of all of that stuff. And it sounds pretty good for a hockey rink. It sounds pretty darn good. I even think it sounds pretty good for a hockey rink. Yeah.
Great. And then there was just a comment actually for Rick from Eric Weber. Eric says, interesting, Rick. I took care of shipboard radars. Before that in college, took care of the meteorology department radars. Texting with Tony Ching of B9 Audio earlier. A new product will be out in a couple of months. His preamps with the TA3 output connectors to make setups for Atmos easier to set up and lower weight.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a few of the B9 audio mics now, and they work well and they sound good. I've got open cardioids, and I don't remember what they call the Omni, but it's an Omni that's almost a cardioid, but not.
How big a diaphragm?
12 millimeters. They're like a Sheps capsule. And they fit the Sheps preamps.
Oh, okay.
Not clones, but the same threads and connectors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
some interesting packaging also.
Not that I should be buying any more mics, but
yeah, me three.
And then Mark says in the chat, I've recorded in the Opera House with the Seattle Symphony. We kept getting interrupted by jets flying over. Back in the 70s or earlier, how did you deal with that? We had to stop recording a half dozen times. Was it just the same?
I don't know. In 1970, I was still USAF property. And I didn't go to work for the center until 1975.
Yeah.
But I never remember having jet noise trouble.
Yeah, I recorded the symphony some, and I did opera broadcasts for many years, and we had more trouble from the common wall with the arena and the backstage of the opera house than anything else. There was one night where we were in a quiet moment of the opera, and Spade looked at me in the broadcast booth, and he goes, "What's that?" It was Pearl Jam was in the arena. They did try to not allow that to happen again, but never heard Jets in over 40 some odd years of working in the Opera House and McCaw Hall.
I see Dan has something for me. Shall I take it?
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay. So let's see, 1960, well, I guess 1970, when there were a couple of large concerts at the ballpark, Six Stadium, and one of them was Hendrix, and because I was working for Bandstand, I was there to support the back line in case something blew up. I would maybe have a chance of fixing it on the spot. So, so Hendrix is I don't remember who was on before him, but the pattern was that they set up the next band on like a large carpet, and then they just pull the carpet across the stage onto the stage, and that's how they did the changes. So they're getting Hendrix set up, and one of the stagehands yells over to Jimmy, "Hey, Jimmy, how do you want your amp set?" And Jimmy yells back without missing a beat, 10. And you know, on a 200-watt Marshall, there's a lot of knobs. And the hand goes back, "What on 10?" And Jimmy yells back, "Everything." And so those are the Jimi Hendrix Memorial amp settings.
I think I worked with a couple of other bands that did that too.
Yeah. And then there's the ones that go to 11.
Yes. I have one of those knobs here somewhere. Well, I want to thank you guys very much for walking down memory lane with us tonight. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing each of you soon. And with that comes to the end of our regularly scheduled program, I think.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys. That was great. Yeah, everyone feel free to turn your videos on and come back for a hang. I know there were a couple folks that kind of jumped in the middle. I can help you get your stuff going here. Yeah, if anyone's stuck on mute or video, just drop something in the chat. But yeah, that was great. Thank you so much, you guys. What a treat.
I do want to say though that I'm sad that we were overshadowed, that we don't get to be the giants of the Northwest. That was and I wasn't sure, Charlie, if that was where Andre came from, but in my eyes, you're all giants. So you know.
I'll take Andre the Giant for $500.
Our meeting last month was Giants of the Northwest about recording engineers.
I see. Okay, now I get it.
Oh, sorry, sorry, Charlie. I left you out of that joke. My mistake. Not the first time, unfortunately.
You'll pay. You'll pay.
I know. I always do.
Yeah. We'll stop by anytime, Matt, and we'll chat again.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. I guess I'm going to be the first to say adios, and I love you all, especially you, Rick, and you, Matt, and Matt Sutton. I'm not going to leave you out, but Mac Perkins, I wish you good health in the future to come, to all of you. So thanks for having me here tonight.
Thanks so much, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks.
Audio, Charlie.
Good to see you.
Adios.
Audio.
Tom, you got your hand up.
I was just going to say that I have sort of came trailing along in the Seattle scene after these three guys, and all three of them have been generous with their knowledge and their gear and their bad humor all the time that I've been working in this field. So I'm grateful for all of that.
It's really a fairly small community.
Kind of.
I should have said this earlier, but I really feel like Charlie and Mac and Rick and Matt set the tone for interaction between competitors, Charlie in particular, since he was directly competing with a bunch of sound companies, but he was always open and willing to share information and knowledge, good and bad, about his experiences. And I think we are benefiting from that still. Not counting today even, but just in general, and especially today.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew.
Well, I think that the certainly coming from the theater community in Seattle is a very close-knit group, and even theaters that were competitors would regularly loan stuff back and forth, and and as somebody who was in business, I was occasionally frustrating because we didn't get any sales, but that sense of community, I don't know. I don't know if it's unique to Seattle. I would hope not, but certainly it's very much there.
Well, I mean, I remember, I'm 10 or so years younger than you all, and I remember when I was first starting out that I needed something, and that was when I met Rick. It was like, sure, come and borrow this. You can use it. And the community here, it was great when I was starting out very young to just see that, and that's a good way to go. And it's nice that it stayed pretty much that way. And of course, I always remember the night at the Opera House, Rick, when Carney and I were in there recording something and nothing was working. And we came down and I looked at you and I said, I need some mic cables. And you looked at a stack of mic cables on the floor and you held your arms out and you said, what's mine is yours. And we ran hundreds of feet of mic cable from the proscenium down over to the sound cage over around the corner where Carney had his 351 set up. And we got the recording that night. And that kind of generosity and spirit is I think it's certainly part of Seattle. I don't know, as you say, hopefully it's other places too, but it definitely is around here.
I don't think it's a New York thing.
I moved here to this area like 18 years ago, and Denver was much more fractured, and everybody was competitive. They had the secret to everything. And I came up to Port Townsend and got involved with the Seattle community, and I was just amazed at how inclusive. It's the way it should be. And I think it's like that a lot more in Los Angeles, but you're probably right about New York, Rick.
Yeah, I think everybody just feels like they're in competition with everybody else.
And if you gain, I lose.
Yeah.
And yet we all gain when we share techniques. Everybody, smart people want everybody to do good work. We talk about the people that just phone it in and don't really care about what they're doing. You talk about the man behind the desk, and that's a real problem. You'd think that anybody behind a desk would want to do their best because God knows none of us are getting rich doing this. We do it because we love it. I'm always amazed when I see somebody who doesn't really care.
And we're definitely not getting younger.
Yeah, I just have fun in Iowa torturing the other sound engineers in the state and forcing them to run cameras for my opera production. It's just fun to force the sound engineers to run cameras.
That's not unusual.
Mac, you come from the theater world. I don't know if you ever made actresses wash a gel back when gels were still gelatin.
Well, actually, I was on staff at the University of Washington drama department for 4 years. And as part of that, we had the Drama 101 group would come through, and I did lighting lab. So yeah, I did that gag on more than once. But we also we used to make variegated gels of various colors, to especially for leaf patterns and stuff like that. So you do it intentionally. You just wet your finger and you lay some stuff over, and you get this wonderful mottled effect. But yeah, actually, when we first started PNTA, you could still get gelatin, and we sold quite a bit of it for people that were cheap. And then finally they discontinued the stuff.
I'm pretty sure at University of Texas we kept it just to initiate the young actresses in drama.
Hey, Matt Sutton, do you mind elaborating on a thread briefly? You mentioned something about doing opera recording with Carney.
Mm-hmm. So I was.
Because I remember when I was working at Meany Hall, I remember one day you and Rick Fisher showed up with a bunch of gear, and you were gonna do some like stereo miking experiments with one of the UW ensembles. And the next thing I knew, you and Rick were beginning a long history of recording the opera. But that was not your first opera recording rodeo at that point.
Well, so Rick and I worked together on the Ring Cycle recording. I did the opera broadcast for many years, but it all started because I was very fortunate to meet Carney Barton back in 1974, and when I was very young. And I took his recording class and then started cleaning faders on his console, and then worked my way up to fixing tape decks, but also spent a lot of time carrying Ampex 351s and boxes of tape up flight of stairs and setting them up and hanging out with him and learning from him how to do, because he did the original live broadcast of Seattle Opera on KOW back in the 70s, right? And then in '89, when they went back on, when they got onto King, then I got the call to do those broadcasts. And so I did that for about 25 years. Very fun.
Right.
Great experience.
Very cool. Yes. I remember when I started getting involved in the Seattle recording scene, you were the guy with the pager. Well,
yeah.
You probably had a pager too, but
yeah, Mac had a pager. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a comment earlier about the rotary pots, and I don't think the youngster understood they were Davin attenuators back in the day. I thought I knew where I had one buried, but I'm not sufficiently organized to have one to show the participants what they actually look like.
Just a minute here. I see Mac going for one.
Someone's got one buried
Yeah,
nearby.
you triggered Mac.
Yeah.
He's got
Mac-
to take the
Mac
cover off the back so we can see it, huh?
Oh, Gary wins the prize. He got there.
Now, has it got the nice clip on the back so you can show the gentleman how they actually work?
Nope. Yeah, Gary.
Can someone please spotlight Gary?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, there we go. So it's not a potentiometer. It's like a rotary switch with a bunch of fixed.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of fixed
stops.
attenuators.
Yep. That's how you get them accurate.
So that's got two tracks. So it's probably a bridge T.
And it's like normally 2 dB steps is the
Yeah, it's whatever
generic
you
ones
order
I've
them.
seen, but
Yeah, Standard Ohm T.
These are 1.5.
1.5. Okay.
And then the last like 4 steps are tapered to off.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is a little cruder.
Now I think at the center one of the consoles had actual step attenuators in it. So like that, but with steps and detents. And
this has definitely got detents, but this is so 10 dB steps.
A little more coarse.
Right.
Yeah, ours at the one in Meeting Hall, which is also a Venticlausen system, was step attenuators. And then there was an EQ section, which was just different for each of the 5 channels, which was just a stepped high pass filter, low frequency roll off.
Yeah, kind of like what we had at the Opera House.
Yeah, I was doing sound for, I think it was Paul Taylor Dance Company, and the stage managers out in the house were doing a little sound check with the tapes. And, you know, I've got these rotary pots and I've got this stepped high pass filter, and we're running a tape and he's on headset and I'm going, how does it sound? He goes, well, it's a little tubby. Can you do something about that? I do a setting on the filter or something, but Pete Zink, who was working that gig, and some of you know Pete Zink, who is a sound and lighting guy in Seattle and a pyro guy. He was on headset, and he's like, to this day, he threatens to build me a tubby control. You know, turn the tubby upward, turn the tubby down. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember mixing on the mini console where the pots were actually stepped, and it was actually kind of nice because, like, if you had 4 pots that represented the horns in a group, and you needed all the horns to come down, you could just take them down 1 or 2 clicks each, and it was very precise and very nice.
Yeah, you knew where you were.
Yeah,
whether or not you wanted to be there.
Right.
Yeah, well, when I was working in broadcast, all the boards had David attenuators in them, in a whole row of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're actually astoundingly reliable considering the goons they had operating them.
Well, they had to be reliable because they had to be goon proof.
Yeah. Yeah, the DJs were really hard on stuff.
Yeah.
Because
yes,
the pots, if you turned them fully anti-clockwise, they engaged a cue switch, so you could get your record queued up, and you know, they would have one hand on the record and they'd slam that pot into the detent, get it queued, and then slam it back up to level and let go of the record.
But they were nice to things compared to the news department.
We did not let the news people handle equipment. We would hand them a microphone. We would hand them their copy off the teleprinter, and we would turn their microphone on. That's about as far as they went. They were chosen for their voices.
Yeah. So I was visiting the Electro Voice factory one day, and this one I was working for Tapco, which became a part of the Electro Voice empire. And Greg Silsby, who's a local here, was working for them, and he had an RE50 microphone on his desk, and RE50 is a common handheld mic for newsies. It's an Omni. It's shock mounted inside and fairly robust. And this microphone had been run over by an ENG truck. Oh. And it still worked.
Like the equivalent of a Mackie, only a microphone.
Yeah. And somewhere else they had a 635A, which had been used for ambient in a news gathering situation, which meant it was clipped onto a 100-foot mic cable and then just tossed out into the wild, and it landed where it landed. And the newsies forgot to reel it in. And so it got keel hauled behind an ENG truck down the freeway.
Oh, no.
And it came loose finally, and another car hit it with the tire, and it went flying up to the level of the overpass, and then came back down. And I think somebody else hit it, and then finally the newsies remembered, oh shit, the microphone, and went out and fetched it, and it still worked. Now the connector was hosed, but if you clipped onto the XLR pins, you could get audio from it.
So I had to bring the RE50. At least I could find that.
There you go. Yes. Yes. A fine instrument.
It takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
There you go.
And it works out in the nasty wind, so that's why it's popular.
Yeah. Well,
Who was it? Who was it? Was working on shipboard radar?
That was myself. I did 35 years as a shipboard radio officer doing recording work during the vacation periods.
And I spent 4 years for the U.S. Navy as a fire controlman, so I was working on somewhat specialized radar, but the electronics techs that were supposed to be maintaining the surface search radar weren't very good at that job. So I wound up working on them too.
Okay. Well, the meteorology department that I worked for in college actually had fire control radars that we had converted and using for weather radars.
Which ones?
We had a T9, which was like a 50s vintage fire control that was converted, and had an SCR 584, which is a like World War II vintage antenna system and servo system for the search.
Yeah. So I mentioned of those, but never worked with one.
Yeah, probably. Well, the university got ancient stuff to convert and upgrade. So
I'm sure it's all surplus stuff. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. We did some of the original research on rainfall rate versus radar reflectivity to calibrate, so you could, predict what the rainfall rate was based on the radar reflectivity. Had machines that actually counted raindrops and measured the size, which is the radar reflectivity is more to do with the size of the drop than it is the actual rainfall rate. So,
yeah, we could, if we had a good lock on a propeller-driven aircraft, we could actually give you an RPM rate.
Oh wow, some good added features.
Well, that was not an advertised feature, but if you knew what you were about and got the system set up right, it wasn't hard to do because the resolution on those things was fantastic.
Yeah, some of our earlier marine radars were far better than the current ones. Of course, they were a lot more expensive. They've gotten cheap in the last couple of decades.
Well, it's all DSP now.
Yeah.
Like everything else. And they've got a lot of neat features that you can use, but the older analog radars were pretty amazing resolution they had. But yeah, I was somewhat amused. The big surface search radar, I walked in and there's a bank of Navy grade cabinets or equipment grade cabinets. And I looked at them and I said, God, those things just look kind of familiar, but I wasn't working on those. And I walked by them going the other way. I said, that looks just a hell of a lot like an RCA FM broadcast transmitter. And then I started to think about it. Long range surface search radar was right there in the TV FM band. And that's exactly what this thing was. It's just a different exciter.
Yeah.
Oh, 35 years in merchant marine, though. That's a long time.
I got to use my trusty telegraph key up until December of '99. Then I had to change over and be more of a take care of all the automation for the engine room in a little bit different line of work.
Okay. Okay, so I guess you're an electronics guy, and they're going to put you where they need you.
Yeah, the the job changed. Actually, I'm still a labor union official for that line of work.
Those American flag carriers, or
Yeah, Matson Lines, which actually is
okay.
a West Coast operation, is our major employer.
Okay. It's good there are still some American flagged operators.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, we'll see if they follow through. The current administration has at least told us they want to build a bunch more ships because they basically don't have enough logistics backup for the military. They finally admitted it's a problem, so we'll see if they actually follow through.
Yeah, talk's cheap, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that talk and then never follow through.
Yeah, logistics for the military is interesting.
Yeah, somehow they need all that material delivered if they're going to be successful, and it's not as easy to sell as a new Navy ship.
Yeah. Well, it had kind of what they call them. It's a U.S. naval ship or something like that is actually owned by somebody else and essentially leases their services to the armed forces.
Yeah,
actually, we more of them are the other way around. The Navy actually owns the cargo ships, and then they hire a private company to manage them and put the crew on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't see them much, but they had there are a bunch of roll-on roll-offs that would show up from time to time. And last year and a half I was on a reserve trainer at Pier 91 in Seattle, which was at that time Pier 91 in Seattle was part of a naval supply station. So we would see all the logistics ships come in and out of there, and having free time, I'd go over and chat with people.
Okay, deal. Yeah, we have a company called Patriot Contracting Services that our guys work for that has a fair number of those gray hulls that do the logistics directly for the military. And then our regular commercial ships, like with Matson, if there's anything breaks out, they can get requisitioned by the military, and our guys have to go with the ship.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, I want to thank you guys again, and thanks everybody for coming. And I'm going to say goodnight.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Thanks,
See y'all later.
Good night and thanks.
Good seeing everyone.
Right. Yeah, good to actually see you, Rick. We've talked, so
yeah, likewise.
Good to catch up. Good evening.
Thanks.
Everyone's leaving. Are we going to stop the recording and say goodnight?
I think we could. I think this is a good place to park it for the night.
All right.
Yes.